Hello and welcome to this another session of the Crypto Club and Digital Assets Weekly Catch-up on Zoom. It is Sunday, the 10th of November 2024. Crypto markets are all in positive at the moment after the US presidential elections. We might talk a little bit more about those as the session goes on. As those who've participated in any of these weekly events will know, never quite know what we're actually going to discuss. Usually it's about blockchain, crypto news, DeFi, NFTs, ICOs, STOs, TGs, all sorts of three-letter acronyms really, regulatory change, central bank digital currencies, general interest stuff really. All completely depends upon the audience and who comes along to join in the conversation. So you can join that conversation in future. We hold these sessions every Sunday evening, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. UK time, and everyone's welcome, novice and expert alike. So with that, let's see who's going to come and join us today. Hey, Gabriella.
Gary, good evening.
You good?
Yes, I'm good. Thank you very much. And you good?
Yes, I'm good, thanks. I see Rodrigo's joined us as well. Hey, Rodrigo.
Hi, Gary. How's it going?
Hey, it's going good. I guess you've not been on one of these calls before, have you, Rodrigo?
I have not. It's my first one. I hope you don't mind me joining.
Please do. The more the merrier. We welcome everyone. But tell us a bit more. Whereabouts are you based, Rodrigo? What's your interest?
I've been based in Dubai for the last 3 years. Originally moved there from Brazil. I'm from to manage the VC fund that we were running from the YFC. I spent 2 years working with them, investing in pre-seed, seed stage companies in Web3 and AI. Now been very much between Netherlands and UK, back to building proprietary projects. I still run two software developing houses in Brazil, and we
Okay.
develop proprietary technology. So I have business partners here, and we're launching a private network and running a fund with liquid strategies, basically.
Fantastic. So did I catch that right? You said you worked with DIFC.
We were based off the YFC, yeah.
Okay. So that's the Dubai, is it
The Dubai
international?
International Financial Center, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So that did that kind of act as like a free port type initiative in some?
It's not a free zone like others, like
Okay.
Silicon Oasis or DMCC. It has another purpose because it has. I don't know how familiar you are with Dubai jurisdiction. So those jurisdictions inside of Dubai, they're sort of independent amongst themselves. Like for you to have an idea, like VARA does not have jurisdiction over the IFC. So it's
Okay.
a different framework, and when you're in the IFC, companies are more like finance oriented, right? So there's a different framework there, other than like Silicon Oasis, which is a free zone, and others. So yeah.
Okay. Because VARA is that like the Virtual Assets Regulatory Authority, if I remember
Yes,
correctly.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. See, there's so many letters to be learning in this thing that it's always quite fascinating. Okay, that's fascinating. So you're now working back in the Netherlands primarily, but doing some international stuff, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I've been spending time here at my business partner's house here in the Netherlands. We've been back and forth to London because, I mean, most of our clients are there, and the network that we're building has our investor there. So yeah, it was actually an introduction from James Bowater,
Hmm.
one of his Mention House events, and yeah, I mean, London is a hub, right, for some of the, let's say, participants that we do definitely expect to onboard into the platform, which are basically boarding school alumni from Switzerland and UK, and family offices.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, it's interesting given that blockchain and crypto is meant to be a decentralized first world, but there are definitely hubs, and London's certainly one of them. I guess Zurich is another, San Francisco a little bit kind of thing. New York certainly is, but yeah, London's definitely. I still think it's one of the biggest hubs of crypto innovation and blockchain development and that. But
Yeah,
then I'm kind of biased because I'm UK based. So
well, I would say like very few places can occupy this position today. I would say like maybe London, UK, Singapore, right?
Mhm.
Abu Dhabi are currently the best jurisdictions for you to do business, not necessarily to establish a company, but to do business with other people, to meet
Mhm.
quality, people outside of this, like, fair and events and conferences kind of thing. So the real people, I have that feeling that the real people and the long-term looking people in the industry, those three places are the places where you're eventually going to find them.
Yep.
And then London is like the mecca of finance and still the global hub of finance at this the greatest level, right?
We've always argued that London's got one unique feature about it, which is when you think about what an industry needs, it first of all needs an industry, a community of people. Plus, it needs banking, it needs finance, it needs insurance, it needs lawyers, it needs regulatory support, it needs government support. And London is the only place, with the possible exception of Singapore, where everything is within about a 15-kilometer radius.
Yeah.
So you compare that to the States, where you've got like legislation and government being done in Washington, the banking and finance side being in New York, the insurance probably being in Hartford or Connecticut type thing, so we're on the east, and then the actual technology innovation being the West Coast and Silicon Valley. So it's spread across several thousand miles. Whereas in London, you can literally hop on a tube or hop in a cab and you can go and see a regulator, a lawyer, a banker, everything. So yeah, definitely has something unique about it.
I think those places are happy to offer people those like easy of access to the institutions they need and the services they need, and that, well, sometimes decentralization does work against the industry, right? Because
Mhm.
everything being too distributed and there's a lack of coordination and whatnot, right? So this places, there's a reason, of course, all of these places are small places, right? Singapore, Abu Dhabi, London. But if I have to put them in a rank, let's say, or differentiate them, I'd say Singapore is like Switzerland, kind of boring, and like the more like traditional banking,
Mhm.
like people. Abu Dhabi, Abu Dhabi and Dubai, they try to be like London, but they are currently like the hub for expats that are fleeing like war, national governments that are troublesome and whatnot. So
Yep.
it does not really create a fruitful environment for business. Most people,
Mhm.
I would say, like Abu Dhabi is much better than Dubai, that's for sure. I've lived 3 years in Dubai, and I say that most people that live in Dubai, they're not really into building stuff. It's more deal based, like a lot of people that already made their wealth. So like there's a lot of Dubai is more of leisure place.
Mhm.
Whilst London, you can have all that, but you also have the tradition. You also have the I mean this there's more structure, there's more history, there's a plethora of services, and of course there's a track history of developing packaging and exporting services and
Mhm.
knowledge. And I think that places like Dubai still need to attract talent. They've been failing to attract talent. It's exciting for talent to be in London because it's a traditional place. There's a lot going on, and it's very exciting, and you meet interesting people. There's always people
Mhm.
coming and going. It's kind of the same thing happens in Dubai, but the quality of the networking that you do there is not as expressive as you get in London, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
this is how I see the difference between those three jurisdictions, I guess.
I think you're right. It's just a shame in a way that London and the UK hasn't yet got itself into a regulatory friendly environment, shall we say? Where I think if we had the regulatory support the way Abu Dhabi is done and Dubai is done around crypto, I think that would really help accelerate things for all the reasons you describe. And I guess it sounds like Rodrigo's had to pick up the phone, so there's
No,
things going
sorry, I
on.
just wanted to, yeah, there's someone was trying to call me, like, and I just didn't want
No problem.
the number here. So, but you know what? Like, I'll be very honest to you, and we can't be naive, right? We we can't avoid the fact that London has a very unfriendly tax system.
Yep.
So, like, if you put on, I mean, if you put it on a logic framework, like a lot of people these days, they're gonna feel, I mean, that Dubai, because of the tax incentives, is a much better place to be.
Mhm.
Uh, and sorry about that. And I don't know, this is something that we can uh try and judge. But
Mhm.
I mean, in a world that is like running away from nation states, like people are not really much more into like dying for a flag or something, like, so this new generation especially, they don't really have a commitment to most of the places they were born and raised, right? So
Mhm.
I don't think they're going to think twice when they're moving out of those places, having, I mean, the core, let's say, variable to be measured as, I mean, like, how much money am I going to save?
Mhm.
Right. So I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing. Again, sometimes decentralization does work against the greater good, the benefit of greater good. Let's say, like, if everybody starts doing the same, then all governments go bust, and things get very ugly, right? So, but I think that's a matter of, like, it's a pendulum kind of phenomenon,
Mhm.
right? Like, we're coming from a very centralized world where uh, all, like, that really strengthened institutions and centralization to kind of try and coordinate the efforts on globalization. So, but I think we've reached a peak on that matter, and now we're retracing, kind of, we're correcting, right? So I think we will experiment new ways of organizing ourselves as a society before we find a balance, right? And
I,
most of
I, I
the
think I think you're absolutely right. And I think this is where technology comes into play as well. I mean, the very fact that on a Sunday evening we're having a conversation between somebody in the UK, somebody in the Netherlands, somebody in Spain, and we don't think twice about that anymore because it's so easy. So the whole ability to interact, interoperate, and everything, uh, ignoring geography makes it much easier to operate all over the place. And I think that's another change. I think that combined with what you're saying, that there seems to be a generational decrease in loyalty to a host nation type thing. People seem to be more willing to, as you say, I'll move to Dubai, I'll move to Abu Dhabi, I'll move to Portugal, I'll move to wherever type thing. There does seem to be an increase in that, which means people are naturally becoming like emotionally decentralized, I guess. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Detached for sure, right? Like, I
Mhm.
mean, there's a lot more. The thing is, there's a lot more access to information now, and, like, the problem is that we're living in this information era where the pace of innovation and, it's just too fast for, let's say, for the vast majority of society to keep up with.
Mhm.
So that's why we see collateral effects to the changes in fundamental behavior paradigms that are still in the very experimental phase, right? We're still, like, we still have to understand how we as a global society are going to deal with this new kind of, like, archetype that is on the rise, like this thing that people have been calling the digital nomad, right? So,
Mhm.
like, this is a classic example. This is like an early adopter of a movement that is only going to grow bigger and bigger. Like, I don't see Gen Zs and below generations, right? Like, and younger generations, like, being seeing themselves stuck into one nation state, and I mean, again, adoring or a flag or something like that. It's too abstract for them, you know. And I've 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 shared. I've wrote just an assessment yesterday about the reflexes that I think on U.S. elections, and something struck my mind that I called like this materialistic dualism, which is we live into this world where like the sense of principles and values are really vanishing in the hands of newer generations, right? There's like a sense of urgency, and there's this desperation to get money at all costs, and then you're good, right? And most people just think that because this generations, they come from, okay, let's be honest, like I come from a generation where my dad would still beat the shit out of me, pardon my French, if I do something wrong, right? And these kids these days, they don't get this. So there's a sense of that they can go unpunished. You know, there's a sense that I can do something wrong here, just hop into a plane and I never come back and I'm easy. You know, at least I made my money. Dubai has a lot of these people. Like, how many people are in Dubai that made their money? God knows how, and just they just don't want questions to be asked. And Dubai doesn't ask any questions. Just bring your money, spend your money here, buy property, you know, and that's it. And I think that's a two-way sword, of course, right? Like, I mean, funnily enough, even though Dubai is the friendliest tax jurisdiction for crypto companies, I still see that most people that are really into the long term and into the value thinking, long-term value generation kind of way of thinking, they wouldn't think twice on choosing London to do business and to meet real people if it's not for the tax thing. Then yeah, and this materialistic dualism idea puts us into two different groups, right? The ones that are commodity attention, right? Like people who just listen and consume and who basically sell their time to advertisers all the time, and who's influencing. The problem is that is no filter for who position themselves as the influencing part. So there's like this, it's this dynamic where just everybody's trying to get their lives, you know, resolved, but there's these people who are saying what they believe and people who are following them. So this dualism creates, for like, in the end of the day, everybody just want to get rich these days, and there's no more like I'm a chronic romantic idealist. So like for me, this is a shame, right? Because I still am the kind of guy who believes that sometimes you have to do sacrifices. Some things you do for change, sometimes you do for greater good, and for the sake of collective, you know, health. You have to do sacrifices. If all of us do a little bit of a sacrifice, it becomes very easy, you know. But that's not the mentality that I think that is the predominant mentality these days, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I just want to pick up on something you were saying earlier, where you're saying about people are driven by urgency. Do you think it's driven by urgency or driven by immediacy? And I kind of differentiate the two. That urgency, as in there is a need to do something, because if I don't do it, I'm going to either lose the opportunity or someone's going to come after me or whatever. Whereas immediacy is more around, I see a lot of this in social media, of instant gratification. It's simply that younger people don't want to wait to get the sense of gratification. And it's more of an immediacy thing, but that's slightly different to urgency. I don't know. Am I just splitting things a little bit too much there?
No, but I do like that differentiation. And the way, if I would hop on your rails here, I would understand it as in like immediacy. I would translate immediacy into like short dopamine cycles, right? Like the sense of immediacy can be seen in this, like, again, this desperate need to be constantly pleasing yourself, right? If you the younger the generation you look at, the more desperate they are for like this instant satisfaction. So drugs, leisure, like everything's becoming way too easy, and they just want to stay home and play games and do drugs and whatnot, which is sad, right? But the urgency is what create the vicious cycle of anxiety and depression, right? Because again, there's this sense that like, well, I have to do something now to be rich tomorrow, right? I have to do this. It's almost like before you didn't know how was like. Let's say you're in a countryside in Brazil where I'm from. You don't even know what's going on outside there in the world. You just basically see some things in the television and you're okay with it, right? But right now there is this like constant feeling of FOMO that there's so much to be lived out there, right? There's like all of these experiences, all of these influences and everything get people feeling like they're living miserable lives all the time, right? And that pushes them away from the inner version of themselves, which should be what I think that you should work before you go to work for external experiences, right? Like, and then I think you're right on differentiating those two things, because again, it's like the immediacy. I would say it's related to the dopamine cycle, and the urgency is a deeper kind of like lack of purpose, lack of long-term vision, kind of like even a lack of singularity, right? You're just like giving in to becoming a commodity, right? As yourself.
It's a good call. Sorry, I just want to say hi to Elle or Ellie, who's just joining us at the moment. I think she's having a few connection problems or whatever, but hey there, stick in there, hang in. But yeah, Rodrigo, I think it's a really good point, because it comes down to a whole societal thing of changes to attitudes, and this is where I think crypto is going to be more easily adopted by cultures and societies that have got different perspectives in this way, and this is where the whole mindset about money and investment and savings and debt and everything completely changes. And that the whole paradigms that we've had traditionally about how banking works, how finance works, how we live our lives, what our values are, I think all of that is shifting thanks to technology. And the younger generations are probably going to be more willing to adopt it because of that. So we'll see how we go. Ellie, can you actually hear us? Can you see us okay? Elle's trying to do something on a screener at the moment. Oh, she's gone.
Hello. Yes, I'm trying. Hey, thank you ever so much. I don't know what's going on. I need maybe to come back in a sec. But thank you for allowing me tonight.
Hey, not a problem. Where are you calling in from?
I'm calling from London.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
So we've got a nice mix of people today. We've got Gabriela, who I'm assuming is still in Spain. Is that right, Gabriela?
Yes, it's all right.
Yeah, and we've got Rodrigo in the Netherlands at the moment, or commuting between the Netherlands, UK, and the Gulf states. And I'm just the West of London as well, so a nice mix of people. So welcome. Is it Elle or Ellie?
Ellie. Oh, yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Gary. Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah, all perfect. Sounds like a very interesting conversation we started and just joined. So please go ahead.
Cool. Well, we went quite deep. It was interesting. I'm not sure how we started this, or Rodrigo and I, where we were talking about cultures within generations, really, with crypto, and how the younger generations are more willing to relocate and travel and go to wherever's best. And we're talking about the benefits of various crypto capitals kind of thing. So, London, Zurich, Singapore. We didn't mention Hong Kong, but that's another one. And the States, and the whole mindset shift of how you're getting crypto nomads who are more willing to just locate wherever either is regulatory friendly or tax friendly, or has got a good lifestyle there. So what brings you along today then, Ellie? Where does your interest lie?
Well, Well, crypto is something that we're talking a lot about now, isn't it? Especially with the new election in the US. So I think that's bringing a lot of attention to a lot of people. And then, like a couple of things struck to mind straight away when I joined the conversation. It was basically anxiety, getting there before the time. And then also, well, obviously that crypto thing is something that I'm really interested in understanding better how it works, because I'm actually currently developing a platform where I want to use crypto as a currency in the future. Clearly, I think the industry, I want to put that forward, is not ready yet. But I think I want to learn as much as possible the benefit of it, because I think, well, a few years ago, it wasn't that clear that basically the virtual money will come to the place as where it is now. But we realize more and more that the digital world is developing faster, and the in-person world and the cash money and these things are kind of disappearing fast, I think. So therefore, you it feels like there are two different worlds that will be I don't know if you remember, is that a Fifth Sense, something like that, the title of that movie?
Fifth Element?
Oh, the Fifth Element, yes.
Fifth Element, yeah.
The Fifth Element, where basically you have like people on the ground and people up in the sky, right? And it feels like it now more and more. So the people that I think embracing the technology will be part of that world. And it seems to be like, communities are created in different ways than it used to be by original countries. Now it will be by the type of digital money or your skill set. That's the way I see things, which is really weird, but I would never think about thinking this way nowadays. Honestly, it's scary in a way, but it seems to be so realistic after tomorrow. I see the city there being built. Well, this is what's happening, isn't it, now in the desert with NEOM? So let's be honest, we're nearly there.
Yeah. I think this is fascinating. I sometimes say that if you want to predict the future, then look at science fiction, because it's remarkable how many of the things that get talked about in science fiction kind of turn out. But you're right. You look at Saudi Arabia and some of the projects that they're doing there, and then you look at what you've seen in some of the movies and that kind of thing. There's definitely a sense of it. But it's curious as well, because I'd consider myself something of a newcomer to crypto. I first started getting into it in about 2014, and I would say that makes me a newcomer. So for everyone who's been in since 2014, I've been into it for about 10 years, and I still think I'm at the beginning of the journey. And what I've discovered is very much what you're describing, actually. It is almost as though you're living in two worlds. There's the world that is crypto aware, and there's the world that isn't. And you kind of step in and out from one to the other. And it is fascinating, because when you speak to people who are aware of crypto, aware of how it works, what it does, and what the potential is, they tend to have a very different mindset and outlook to those who are the traditional finance world, who actually, it gets really, really interesting, because once you start trying to understand how crypto works, you necessarily have to go and learn how traditional finance works. So you learn about banking and bank accounts, you learn about settlements and how it works, and you suddenly discover that banking doesn't work the way you thought it did. And this is what I find fascinating. So I find that the people who are in the traditional finance world, they think about things like current account, deposit account, payments, pension, insurance, all this kind of thing. They don't actually know how those products actually work, and they don't care. They're not that bothered. But as soon as you step into the crypto realm, it's like you go down this rabbit warren of learning about how crypto works. And you start thinking, well, what's important about decentralization and distribution and all this kind of thing. And then you start looking at the traditional world, you realize you didn't understand how it worked. So yeah, I'm with you, Ellie, that I think that we're living a bipolar life kind of thing, that once you're into crypto, you go, I didn't know there was this world, and it operates very different to the traditional one. So,
but would you go back? Would you go back, to the normal ways of how things have been always done? Because I think when you look at the monetary, or the exchange, it was a service for a service. It was the guy that was hunting, I don't know, some weird animal in the wildlife, and then you had the one that was fishing, and then it was like, well, you give me a bit of that, I give you a bit of that, and that is how they started, right? And now we're talking about digital token and how we can make the universe like a pixelized universe, isn't it?
Yeah.
But then worth of money. So it's like Legoland, right?
So I'm going to offer. It's interesting. You mentioned the Fifth Element before, so I'm going to stay with the film analogies, and where you're saying, would you go back and all this kind of thing. I'm going to offer the Matrix for those who watch the Matrix, about the opportunity.
Ready Player One. Ready Player One also.
Ready Player One's brilliant, because that actually goes back to the whole metaverse concept as well. But the reason I was mentioning the Matrix was simply because Neo, the hero in it, is offered the opportunity to take a red pill or a blue pill. And if he took the red pill, that means he gets the real understanding of how things work. And if he takes the blue pill, he never knows any better, and he just carries on living within the Matrix without realizing it. And crypto is kind of like that. I think once you take the crypto red pill, you can't go back, because now you understand how things work. Well, Rodrigo, you're right. Ready Player One, fascinating for those who don't know, is a movie about a computer game, if I remember correctly. And it's all where you step into this universe, you wear VR gear. And it is probably one of the first that related to the metaverse, in terms of the concepts behind that. So here we go. It proves again what I said about science fiction is sometimes a great indication of where we're going to go in the future. So yeah, good call on that, Rodrigo. There you go. I'm going to have to share Ready Player One on the screen now as well.
Yeah, I was about to ask if you could share Ready.
Particularly, I believe that the book, it's always like that, right? Like the movie, it's a masterpiece. I really like it, but the book was really what got me into the magic. It was alongside a few other books that I've read, like in the early stage, like Neuromancer and some Terry Pratchett stuff, like some, this is, yeah. So, but I would like to put 2 cents here, a little bit on the past and a little bit on the future, if you allow me, Gary.
Yeah.
Ellie, not only I think that there's no way back once you get into crypto, but once you start digging, and you start really digging, I mean, metaphorically speaking, right? Digging into abstraction of it. Like Gary, I got into crypto in 2014, and what fascinated me, of course, if I could go back, I would tell myself to buy all the Bitcoin I could. But what fascinated me was the idea of an automatized, systematized consensus protocol, right? So new ways for human beings to transact, interact, and reach consensus other than the ways that we have today, right? Which is, and that makes me think that, which is actually like normal, right? When you say normal, right? Normal is just a mathematical kind of, model that puts everything that happens more into the center and say, this is normal, right? Normal is not necessarily good. Normal is just an analytical way of looking at reality and statistically understanding what happens more. After that aforementioned red pill that Gary said, like, I look back into the world and I pity us as a society. I mean, how come we've lived throughout millennia under centralized institutions that are clearly, let's say, manipulating information, right, for the benefit of very few, right, that are gatekeeping the truth, right? Sorry, but I'm going to go in as far as to the Vatican and say, like, why can't I go to the Gotham Forbidden Library? I want to know what's there. And if you're going to tell me that this is normal, it's normal for human beings to hold knowledge from other human beings, it makes me sad that this is normal. I look back at the history of society and everything that we've been subject to makes me sad. Central banks, centralized governments, all of this, it's sad. It's really sad. But what's the challenge to the future? And as I was discussing with Gary a little bit before you joined us, it's like, well, the unfortunate part is that technology is advancing much faster than people can keep up with in their mindset, in their understanding of reality. They cannot grasp it anymore. So they're more victims. Not to say victims, they're product. Now the people are the product of technology, right? Because if, and only if we had spent time as a society, let's say, improving and enhancing our collective behavior to work as in a balanced manner. And I'm not talking about communism, socialism. I'm literally talking about just like a consciousness, right? If we had better ways of organizing ourselves that wouldn't rely on representative democracy, which for me is just stupid, right? Like you're creating bottlenecks, right? Okay, it facilitates the mechanics, but now we have technology, why we're still using it, right? And then if you look at the future, the problem with the future is that, well, we have AI and we have Web3, so that means that we only need conscious beings now. Well, welcome to the problem. That's why science fiction always projects catastrophe, because everything will boil down to human beings not agreeing. And that will create wars, that will create problems, like we were discussing, right? Like the rise of this digital nomad. Nobody wants to pay taxes anymore. So that means that in the long run, every single government is going to go bankrupt. Who takes care of the public goods if we don't find better ways to organize ourselves in a decentralized manner? You have to invite individuals to hold themselves self-accountable, to hold themselves, that you want self-custody, you want self-sovereignty. There is a trade-off, right? Like you have to be more responsible, you have to hold yourself self-accountable, right? So that's the one thing that nobody wants to do. So that's what I say to my generational peers, especially in Brazil, where inertia reigns, right? They leave Fridays of amnesia to forget about the inertia of their weeks, and they sit down on the bar to drink pints and complain about the politicians. And I said, "Are you dumb? Have you lost half of your brain?" It's like, because you throw, like, what's the relevance of you? You're absolute nothing. And what you do is like we keep like gathering ourselves in the self-affirmation cycles, and we want to lie to ourselves that the world's not going wrong. Like for me, there's one thing that a mentor of mine said that really resonated with me these days, and I take it as a very important, let's say, baseline for my behavior, which is like, in a world going wrong like we're living into, to remain optimistic is in itself an act of rebellion. But the thing is, like, if you apply that to the discussions that we were having, if you like, there's a reason why sci-fi always projects the tragedy, right? Because it sells better, right? And second, because every single intelligent human being that tries to project reality will eventually face the truth, the sad truth, which is like, it will come down to a point where human beings, they don't care. Individualism is at its peak, right? And well, I'll give you the word now because it was a bit too much of subject.
But I guess this whole conversation, because this is a conversation which is a little bit different from the normal ones we have on these sessions, but it shows exactly the thing that I love about crypto, in that you start off talking about crypto, and then before you know it, you're having incredibly philosophical conversations about society, about culture, about responsibility, about ethics, morals, approaches, taxation. I cannot think of any other subject that when you get a group of people together to say, oh, this is we're going to have a conversation about X, which then leads to such a rabbit warren of potential avenues and juxtapositions and effects and everything. And that's one of the things I find fascinating, because I end up having so many interesting conversations or listening to so many interesting conversations that it's kind of like a late night in the pub with a group of people after a few beers, that it gets very deep kind of thing, but in an intellectually supportive way, because it's not threatening, you know, people. It's not like talking about football or religion or whatever. But people are very supportive of each other, and you hear so many different perspectives that I think it's just fascinating. I don't know, Ellie, when you joined, did you expect us to have this kind of conversation?
Not at all. I was, well, I have no expectation because I came before, but you know, we kind of looking at the deep technical or technology conversation this here is clearly, well, sharing some fears and some, well, realistic points, in a sense, like, well, literally within the last 6 months, it feels like the world is ruled by the technology. I don't know, I'm looking at TikTok, for example, just not to name another platform, right? Social media. What they're putting there is just crazy. How they do like, what is that word? Propaganda kind of things in relation to AI. And, you know, me, I think our brain has been set, you know, with great values and understanding how the world works. But I'm thinking for, you know, either the oldest generation that haven't had access to the technology, and the youngsters that now literally have been plugged in. I'm just thinking, oh my God, you know what? My kids in the next 10 years, I'm quite worried for them, to be honest.
Well, Brian, I was going to quickly offer that I think extending that even further, Rodrigo made a really interesting point before. And I think he was referring to access to information.
Yeah.
You know, and the thing about technology, if you think about AI or even search engines or the web or whatever, is that it's a very powerful way of controlling what information we have access to. But people just don't understand that, you know, Google, for example, one of the world's largest search engines, does not provide you with the ability to search for everything on the internet. It only enables you to search what Google has allowed you to search. And therefore, it has put in place some filters that none of us realize are even there. And so we kind of get blindsided to this kind of thing, that we think, you know, if I do a search using Google or even, you know, some of the other search engines, then we assume that that's all there is to know. And we don't even question what we're not seeing.
Well,
Now,
to jump on that, to jump on that before you go to your next point, Gary, with the search engine. Well, when you look at different websites, you know, when you order things that come delivery at home, well, basically there is always that, and we suggest this as well, or the people like you have seen this. And basically they're narrowing the access to the information. They're not enabling you. Well, if you have like, you know, the intelligence to think outside the box, well, you know, you will still being able, I think, to go around, you know, different things and questioning, you know, what you want to see and how you want to access the information. But more and more, they kind of put you in one lane, and that's kind of it. So it depends really who you have around you. And I think it's separating, the capacity of having that great information thing. And, talking about information, industry where I am is always, we always say, well, information is power. And I'm pretty sure it's in many industries, but it's power for what? Because you can make the right decisions, right? Or you can look at different ways or different options for you to move on with life or career or, area of living and whatsoever. But then what else? And
Can I give my 2 cents here also?
Yeah, go for it, Rodrigo.
I have a 7-year-old daughter myself also, Ellie, and I think that worrying is caring, right? Imagine if you're like jump off a cliff in a wingsuit and you don't fear and you don't worry for your life, you die, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't worry now, that means that we're gonna fail. And the reason I think worrying is actually positive is because if we worry, it means that we care. It means that we're looking at we're searching for a better way. Because right now, as I understand, we're being held hostage of recommendation algorithms, and we already are integrated as, if not to say, like kind of in a symbiosis with technology. Think of the information processing capability that your daughter or child has compared to ourselves when we were their age, right? Like they are already kind of cyborgs if you give them a phone. They are processing a volume, like an overwhelming amount of information. So that's why, as for myself, I've been through that struggle, of course, when I was about to become a dad, because okay, how the hell do I raise a child to a world that I have no goddamn clue what's going to look like, right? So, but it's actually simpler than I think that people make it up to, because you just have to give your kid confidence to ask the right questions and not and to take to take conclusions by themselves, not take anything for granted. Because right now it's like that thing, right? Don't trust anything, verify, right? If you can teach your kid to ask the right questions and not to trust anyone that you cannot verify information, then your kid's going to eventually, but necessarily, step away from all the sorts of manipulation schemes that can interfere and influence their lives in a bad way. And sometimes, which sometimes happens without really being the intention. I say, well, I bet that every single government has a good intention. Of course, if it's not like an autocracy or a dictatorship or whatnot, but all of them have some sort of like good intention towards society, but they cannot do much because they have many constraints and whatnot. But I mean, this is why I think we come down to a word that is like pushing the boundaries of decentralization, and the escape velocity we're only going to be able to achieve if we educate our kids now to not to follow anything, but to be confident enough that they can make as many mistakes as they want. And it's okay to hesitate if they're not sure. Just giving them the confidence, because they're lost. They're lost.
I think you're right. I know that in the UK, they're talking about education reform at the moment, and the previous government was talking about how they were thinking about like making computer programming compulsory because they thought that was the future. And I would argue what should be compulsory is the teaching of critical thinking. The ability to question, to think, to assimilate, to assess, to review, to discount, to verify. I think they're all really important, because I think we're about to go through a paradigm shift with technology right now. And I've seen this happen a few times previously, where up till now, technology has been relatively passive. So, using the Google example, Google as a search engine is pretty passive. I type something in, it gives me a response. I do whatever with those results. Now with AI, I'm seeing a lot of stuff where people are becoming increasingly dependent on the answers it's giving, because the answers don't look like a set of results anymore. They look like direction, they look like guidance and everything. but they're still based on the same control set of information that someone somewhere has deemed going into the model in some way. And I think that's the real worry, that, whether it's young people, old people, or anything in between, that they're going to start accepting whatever it is the AI tells them, and they're not going to think twice about it, because it's also, again, if you go into the psychology concept around flooding the brain with too many choices, too many options, too much data, the brain naturally grasps whatever it's told. So there are techniques in psychology you can use where you flood someone with a load of stimulus or information or whatever, but towards the end of that, you throw in a statement which is effectively an instruction, and the brain goes, I do that. And that's what worries me, that those capabilities are coming into place. And it's a new form of technological propagandization without people even realizing it's there. So it's a way of controlling a narrative, which is interesting when you take it back to the crypto side of things, where everyone's talking about crypto being decentralization, censorship resistance, this kind of thing. But no one is talking about willful control or manipulation or direction type thing.
But let me give you another optimist horizon here on that matter, Gary. Like, think of it this way. Let's paint a hypothetical environment here where my daughter is now like 30 and she's about to give me my granddaughter, right? And I see that we're going to have a conversation before or my granddaughter is even born about what kind of algorithm, what kind of AI assistant are we going to use to help raise her. And I can assure you that's not going to be OpenAI mechanism, because OpenAI is just like this transition player, right? That is trying to explore the very boundaries of what AI can do without knowing where they can get to, right? But there will be a correction, and the real players that are going to get into our houses are going to be the player that make the parents comfortable, right? Which, like, it's a bunch of more specific so let's say parameters that will be in place. Right now, ChatGPT, we use it because it's the only thing that virtually we have. This is the most powerful AI thing that everybody can use. But it's very limited, right? It's still like kind of it's a Google version of AI that's still in its very infancy, but it's going to grow. And as it grows, as the models advance, because right now, every 6 months, there's like gigantic leaps in AI. Like in one of our software developing companies in Brazil, we've developed our own proprietary LLM, and it's been 2 years that we're training it. And we developed and designed it to train specifically for using local data sets. And using Brazilian Portuguese as the main language, because there are limitations that OpenAI's model would offer if you want to develop specific assistants that work vertically in jurisdictions. Like we on top of our own LLM now, we're developing 2 assistants, proprietary assistants. One is for the law firms and the lawyers, and then other one is for medic like clinics and hospitals, because you cannot use OpenAI model to like analyze cases that are written in Brazil and in Portuguese in private and public data sets and whatnot. So the outcome that if you use an OpenAI model, the outcomes it's not going to be as nearly as powerful as if you train something locally. And this will be the distribution phase of AI, right? Like once OpenAI reaches this AGI level, everybody's going to know how they do it, and they're going to take it to apply into their more, like, let's say, vertical oriented environments, right? Which is best for my reality. So like I'm sure that I'm going to have this conversation with my daughter, and we're going to have an AI assistant that is with my granddaughter from the moment she's born, and we're going to have all of the kind of like monitoring systems in place. And I found that amazing. Like I hated school. Right? And imagine how fun it can be to learn things with an AI assistant since you're born. Like I want to know how this, why does this glass breaks this way when I drop it? And I'm going to ask my AI, and it's going to teach me physics. It's going to teach me everything that I wouldn't have fun or enjoy learning in school because I need to pass a test. So I'm kind of optimist in that matter, because like it's going to if we here don't mess up real bad, like, and destroy everything, I think like the generations that will come after, or our kids' generation, when they're 15, 18, they are like smarter than we may ever be.
Mm.
Because
I would like to jump on that in a minute when you're done, Rodrigo.
no, go ahead. Otherwise I'm gonna be just like, digressing.
But well, two points I would like to make on what was discussed. So the first one is how the data has been collected, for the voice, the video, and those kind of things, how ethically that was done. And the second point that I like that you raised was about the education. I think we see the education changing quite dramatically. And I think, again, I'm referring to another movie. I do not remember the title, unfortunately, but I remember that one of the main character put basically some sort of eye, what was that? Like, I forgot, like a VR type of thing. And they had a conversation with a woman again. I don't know. And it was basically everything they were sharing was that through that VR visual thing. And it was about education, as you said, and different ways of how people are feeling. So you were sharing your feeling through the VR, which is really interesting. But then to come back on the on the data point and how everything has been collected, I'm just thinking about Alexa. How many people voices have been recorded thanks to Alexa? How many Face ID have been collected thanks to Apple? Or, even the fingerprints.
Yeah.
COVID, thank you very much. We all doomed. Basically, we all in a database at some point, aren't we?
Yeah, but let me try give you another example outside of the environment that we are here. Let me try and structure that talk. Gary, you take it there, and I'll structure it, and I'll get back.
I'm trying to just pick up on that because I think what Elle is describing it's the double-edged sword, really, of technology, that it offers massive potential and could also, in the wrong hands, be very, very dangerous. And this is what I've found interesting over the last few years about talking about things like crypto, blockchain, AI, and all the capabilities and that, and things like facial recognition, digital payment systems, all these kind of things. From a technology point of view, I think they're phenomenal. I think they're absolutely incredible. The ability to, use AI to scan an image of a person and know who that person is, or to go into a store to buy a product and it scans the image of the face and it uses that as a payment mechanism. Technology-wise, brilliant. It's absolutely amazing. And being a technologist, I'm excited by that. However, I can also see the other side, that if an agency, authority, or whatever controls that mechanism, then they now also control what I can buy, when I can buy it. They can track and trace what I've bought, where I've been, who I've been with, which is quite a dystopian thing. And the thing that has came home to me about that is how much people are getting worried about that. To me, that's not actually a sign that they're worried about the technology. It means it's a sign that they're worried about their governments. And I think that's far more fundamental, because as young people, you start off thinking that government's there to, support society, protect citizens, blah, blah, blah. I think as you get a little bit older and you take that red pill, you realize that might not be quite the case. Rodrigo, did that buy you enough breathing space for you to quickly synthesize your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I just I had I'm a Satoshi Roundtable member, and it's a group that meets every year to discuss, fundamental matters in the industry. We meet each other for like 10 years. I recall a discussion I had with David Chown. David Chown's it's the founder and chair of Privacy Foundation. And like privacy is a big concern amongst all of the early, like let's say cryptographers and whatnot. But like me and David, we bonded because I brought something new for the discussion, and I think it can apply to this. So let's think of it this way, right? Like I think right now it's a very confusing moment because you're in the transition phase, and the technology itself is not ready. We don't know the best way to apply it. So there's a lot of people taking advantage of that. Like see how many scams in crypto and whatnot. That all happens because there is a lack of like clear frameworks, right? Or proper understanding of the technology and its applications. The analogy here that I want to make with privacy is like, think of it this way, okay? We will get to a point where you can at least be self-sovereign over all of your assets, be it your information, your assets, your face, your voice, whatever, and your crypto and whatever. There will be a point where we have a digital tool that allows us to say who can access our information or no, right? When in the moment where Facebooks are no longer relevant, right? In the same way that many companies that came before are no longer relevant because the dynamics are going to change. But the fundamental aspect of that, the fundamental, let's say, metaphysical question here is like, it's a dualistic environment, right? So my point towards privacy is that, yeah, privacy is great, but aren't we missing a point here, which is like if we take into account the extreme opposite of privacy, which is full transparency, think of all the benefits that we will get from full transparency, right? And if you try and convince me that privacy is really utterly more important than full transparency, I'm going to argue with you, because try to give me one example as to why privacy is really paramount. Like you're trying to hide the money that you spend from your wife. You want to avoid taxes. Okay, there's fundamental privacy, which is I don't want everybody to see me naked. I don't want people to. Okay, which when it comes to your private space, which are like someone had to things that they had to ask you for permission to, right? And that's okay. But think of it this way, right? In a moment like this, it's this double sword thing always comes down to me to how much we're going to be capable of promoting collective consciousness, and understand that if your choice is to be on the one side of the trade-off, there's still a trade-off. Then what I'm getting here is, if you choose to give your information to a centralized entity, you're lying to yourself if you want to believe that they're not going to use it against you. Even if it's not harmful, right? Just selling your information on your behalf to monetize and make Mark Zuckerberg rich when you're giving him all of the information that you could be selling yourself. Oh, okay, individual data doesn't have value, it has to be collective. Okay, but you just change the dynamic, and people buy data in bulk, and you put your data in like data pools for people to buy and whatever, if you want to monetize with your data. So there's this constant thing that is this double-edged sword for me. It's not a passive understanding of reality, but rather an active stance towards reality. Like if we as society had conscious individuals that would be capable of holding themselves self-accountable and responsible for their own actions, we would have a perfect world, right? Because everybody takes responsibility, everybody holds themselves self-accountable for their actions. And if you want privacy, then you don't get access to the benefits of giving full transparency, because that's what you choose.
So, Rodrigo, I'm really, really sorry, because I think that's a fascinating discussion and debate around the whole thing about, as you say, it's like making a choice, striking a balance, this kind of thing. But I'm afraid we're going to have to close the call right now, because I try and finish these on the hour. We've actually overrun. because it's that interesting thing, the whole concept about duality and this kind of thing. So I'm going to have to close the call, unfortunately, but I'd love to carry on this discussion on a future session, because I'm sure others would like to join us, and Ellie and Gabrielle, it'd be great to hear more about your views again as well. But really sorry, going to have to close this for this week. For anyone who's watching online, come and join us next week and join in the conversation, because I think we're at a point with technology, as you say, it's all getting faster and faster, which also means we've got a responsibility. And I think that's where it's great to have this conversation. So thanks everyone for joining us. Rodrigo, thanks very much for your great insights and thoughts. Ellie, likewise. Gabrielle, I know you've been listening furiously as always, listening to what's going on. I hope it was interesting. For everyone else who's watching, hope you enjoy it. Come and join us next week.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary.
Bye.
Bye all.